May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his. And anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Daishin David Sunseri. His is a rather interesting story. He was very close with Issan Dorsey, and you'll hear a lot about that from him and me. He's the only person I know of, aside from some people who worked with Tommy back then, his manager Mickey and some others I met, who actually saw Tommy perform as a female impersonator when David was a teenager and was sneaked into a show in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. Anyway, his path led him to reconnect with Issan years later and, was with him to the end, and then somehow ended up going to Japan and getting ordained in the Rinzai tradition as a priest at Myoshinji. So, let's just give him a call and hear what he has to say. When you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or do whatever for as long as you want. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever, and give Daishin David Sunseri a call.
Yes.
David.
Yes, it is David. Who is this?
This is David too, David Chadwick.
Oh, David, yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, good. You?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine. I'm doing pretty well. For getting older, I'm happy to get older.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I agree. So your Buddhist name is Daishin. Yeah, Daishin. Is that big mind?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Issan always used to say, he kept on trying to, he said, well, this is your job to figure this out now for the rest of your life. I said, oh, thanks.
Ooh, yeah, good. And who gave you that name?
Issan.
Aha, very good.
He actually gave me, four characters.
Yeah.
Daishin Myoyu, or actually more than that.
More? There's more?
Well, Daishin Myoyu, that would be 5 characters, right?
No, not necessarily.
Well, however they did it, I don't remember now. I have it on my, whatchamacallit.
On your Raksu.
Right. No, not my Raksu. I was thinking of the
Ketchimiyaku.
Ketchimiyaku, yeah. I'm forgetting the names of this stuff now. Some of it I remember, but then other stuff I don't quite get at all anymore. It's fading.
Yes, no, I understand. It's no big loss.
Now, I know you're 10 hours away. I want to ask you. You're 10 hours away, and I presuppose that puts you in Asia somewhere.
Yeah, no,
right?
I'm not 10 hours away. Right now, I think I'm 15 hours ahead of you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Bali.
Bali.
Yeah.
Oh, are you on a trip or traveling, or
No, I live here.
you live in Bali? Oh, aren't
Yeah.
you fortunate?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
I can. I had a lot of. I had many friends, in the late '60s and into the '70s. People were traveling all over. I didn't. I did traveling, but I didn't go to Asia.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't until later. And I had friends that went to Bali who loved Bali.
Well, if
Yeah.
anybody was here in the 60s or 70s, they wouldn't recognize it, of course.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Some
Yeah. It
places,
was.
some places
Hmm.
they would. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Okay. Well, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're in San Francisco.
I am.
And
My
you,
hometown.
yeah, you got a Rinzai, you're a Rinzai teacher now or something like that, right?
I'm a Rinzai. I was ordained a Rinzai priest. Yeah.
By whom?
I was ordained. I was ordained actually in Kyoto.
No kidding.
Yeah, connected to Myoshinji.
Wow. By whom?
25 years ago.
Yeah. Who
Been a long
ordained you?
time. My teacher at the time, Zenryu Nagagawa. He's passed away about. Let me think now. How long ago he passed away? A year and a half ago he died. But he was quite elderly. He was in his late 90s. And, so yeah, I went there eventually. I met him in Seattle at a group in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. And I had already sewn my rakusu well, actually I sewed my rakusu and also sewed my okesa, and to get ordained by Issan. I was supposed to be ordained by Issan, but then he went and died.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, everything kind of fell apart then. Things changed pretty quickly. And anyway, well, you know the rest of that part, because you were around, weren't you, when he
No, I was
died?
living in Japan.
You were?
Remember?
Oh.
Now you sent me
that's right,
an email.
because of the postcard, yeah.
Right, with you,
Now I remember.
with Issan reading the postcard I'd sent him from Okayama, where we lived.
Okay.
And I was practicing at Sogenji.
Sogenji, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, the abbot was Shoto Harada, and
Right.
his teacher was Mumon Yamada, who was the abbot of Myoshinji.
At one point, yeah.
At one point, right.
Right.
So you shared that.
Well, Myoshinji's huge. That place is something else. It's like you drive through the place. You can drive in cars. People don't realize how big a area it is. I think that's the biggest, whatever, training center or I'd call it a monastery rather than a temple.
I call it a temple complex.
That's true, yeah, because there's so many I think there's 40 some odd sub-temples.
Yeah, there you go.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, because I drove around in this little cart and with this other priest, and he was showing me around, and we it was kind of funny because we went past the Daishinji.
Yeah.
A little temple called Daishinji. This was pretty common. And you know how they have it set up? They just have this little rope across the thing, and and nobody, of course, goes through at all. You know how it is in Japan, where it used to be anyway. That 20 years ago, people didn't. If there was a little rope or something, no one would go in there. It's not like here where people would.
Right.
People be spray painting the walls and stuff.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. That's true. They follow orders there. They follow rules.
They just do. Everything is. The other thing that always surprised me in Japan was the little altars everywhere. You know what I mean? All the streets and stuff, these little altars that are just, they have flower.
Yeah, that's nice.
That was amazing to me. Yeah, it was so
That's
sweet,
nice.
really.
I'd forgotten about that. It's hard thinking of Japan as having altars everywhere when you live in Bali, where there's really altars everywhere.
Oh, right. But isn't Bali changed quite a bit from? Well, I know that we were saying that, but isn't it mostly, rather than being Hindu, isn't it mostly Islam now, or no?
No,
Or is that just
no,
Java?
no.
Oh, it's
no.
not. Oh,
Bali
okay.
is Hindu.
Yeah.
It's
It's still
Balinese Hindu.
Balinese, which is, yeah. I remember the gamelan music.
Yeah, yeah. Gamelan music is not Bali. It's Indonesian. But there's
Oh,
Balinese
okay.
gamelan music. There's Javanese.
Right,
There's all sorts.
right, right,
And
right.
Bali's Hinduism is, I call it voodoo Hindu.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very, there's a lot of shamanism in it. There's some Buddhism. There's, Buddhism and the Hinduism, that's that's sort of the, what would you say, that's how they explain it, or but their real practice is shamanism, animism.
Right, right, right.
And
Yeah.
that's true in Japan somewhat too, with
Yes.
the Shinto.
Yeah. With the Shinto, yeah. That was another thing that I was surprised by how much, what would you call it? The mixture of traditions, sort of.
Yeah,
Like all the people go to that I went to that big temple where all the people get married. I can't remember the name of it now. The
that's a
Shinto
shrine. That's not a temple.
big shrine. Yeah, it's a big shrine because it has a huge roof on it, and all
Yeah.
these couples line up, and the women at that point, the Western wedding dresses were popular, so all these women were dressed up in these big wedding
Oh
dresses,
yeah.
American white. It
Yeah.
was very, very weird, kind of,
I
and
I
but that was,
know you're
yeah,
talking about.
it's
Oh,
a
I'm trying
huge,
to locate it. It's not
yeah,
far from, say, Nanzenji. Um,
right,
uh,
yeah,
yeah, it's really big. Katrinka and I were in Japan 8 years ago, and we
uh-huh,
saw no there, and no
oh,
drama,
yeah.
and that was pretty cool.
I didn't see either one. I didn't get there.
Yeah, we
I
saw
I I
no there.
I lied to my teacher and the people where I was staying, and I said I need to get home, but I had a certain date to get home. But what I did was, instead of doing that, they let me off at the big train station in Kyoto. That big giant thing that goes up,
Oh,
and
sure.
a huge thing. And they let me off, and I said goodbye, and we all said goodbye. And instead of doing that, I walked a couple of blocks to this to a ryokan that I found, and I stayed there for another week. And I was able to, I was able to explore Kyoto because I couldn't do it when I was,
Yeah. No.
in the place. I was too
Right.
busy, or too much stuff going on. My teacher was really ill at that point. He had really bad heart, and he wouldn't take his medication. He was being a bad boy, and he wouldn't take his medication. And he had this big woman. I don't know what you'd call her. She was like a big mama.
Mm.
I think she was a lesbian, and she would just tell him off and tell him to take his pills or make sure he had his thing. Oh, it was something else. It was kind of crazy when I
Huh.
was there, but it's all, it's always a little off. Japan's a whole other world to me. It was very strange for me. Even though it was beautiful and wonderful, I was really lost
When
when
were
I
you
was
there?
rolling around. The last time I was there was, let's see, 2000. 2000. So it's been a long time.
When was the first time?
The first time I went was in 90. Well, let's see, I left Hartford Street. It was probably about 92. I was thinking about it the other day. It was about 92, first time I went. And, or no, the first time I met him, my teacher, my future teacher, was 92. So it must have been a year or two after that, because he wanted me to come and do stuff. And I don't know. Also, it was very strange because I helped with the sesshin up in Seattle.
Yeah.
This was before I was ordained, because I just had all the equipment, not with me, but I had. And he was asking me about my life and stuff. So he ran the sesshin, and so I helped out. That's all. I helped out. They asked me to do things, and I didn't know what they were doing because it was Rinzai and it was different. I didn't really know half the stuff. So,
Yeah.
but we got through. You know how it is. You can kind of just. I like your quote about the bozos. Like
Oh, we're all bozos on this
we're just
bus.
on the boat. Yes, we're all just going along to see what happens.
That's been my email signature for I don't know how long,
That's great. That's a good
20
one.
years or
Yeah.
something. I've never been able to replace it, or it
No, it's
never gets
wonderful.
old,
No,
you
it doesn't.
know.
It's wonderful. I laugh every time I see it.
Well, you know what it's from?
It's from a theater production of
Yeah,
some
it's
sort.
from,
Yeah,
I think they're called Firesign Theater. And
something like that. Yeah.
they made some terrifically funny records.
Uh huh.
And one of the records was called "We're All Bozos on This Bus," I believe.
I see.
I have forgotten everything but that.
It's just, oh right.
You
Well,
know.
that's one of the stuff that kept you stayed with you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyways.
indeed. So, listen, how did you
Hmm.
get involved in this Zen stuff? What's your way-seeking mind
Well,
story?
my crazy story. Well, originally, I was like, I think I told you that originally I was living in the city, and
Where are you from?
I'm from the city originally,
Uh-huh.
North Beach, Italian.
Wow, from
Yeah,
North Beach.
from North
Wow.
Beach. I know everybody goes, oh my God. Yeah, we were on Green Street near Grant. In
Yeah.
fact, the flat that my grandparents and my parents lived in is still, well, they had the lower flat and we had the upper flat. It's still on Green Street. It's really close to Grant.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my grandmother was born there also.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they went through the earthquake and fire.
Sunseri, what sort of name
No,
is that?
Italian. It's Italian.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Actually, Sicilian. We're
Ooh,
not. And
scary.
my grandmother's side was they were from my grandfather mainly. My mother's father was, and I was very close to him and my grandpa. He was from his family was from an island called Ustica, which is just north of Palermo. It's this little island in the ocean, and that's where his family was coming. And then they originally came the gold rush. But they didn't, like all these other people, they didn't, not the whole family, but my grandfather's side, and they didn't, none of those people made anything. I mean, the gold was gone, right? So they sold vegetables,
Well,
and they
that's
ended
the
up
smart thing to do. Yeah.
right, and that's what they knew. And then they ended up owning. They eventually bought property in Marin, and then they bought property in Santa Clara Valley.
Mm.
So anyway, when my grandmother her family went through the earthquake. They were little kids, She was like 6 or something, and they had to go in a barge from San Francisco to Alviso, all the way down with all their stuff. Can you imagine?
Ah.
And so they had to live. They lived down there with relatives because that's what happened. Everybody lived. You had nowhere to go, so they had to wait until the pipelines were fixed and everything. It wasn't really the earthquake; it was the fire that really destroyed San Francisco. The fire. They didn't have much problem where they were, but boy, south of Market, I think, just burned down most of it.
Yeah.
As I understand. Yeah.
Well, there's pictures of it that look
Yeah,
like.
they were really traumatized by it. My grandmother really said it was terrible. They were scared to death. The kids. She had 2 sisters and a brother, and they were all really scared when that happened.
Ah. Yeah.
And they were little ones, So.
Mm.
But anyway, so they took a barge down there, and they eventually came back. But it took them I don't know how many years it took before they got stuff rebuilt, and a long time, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I'm from North Beach.
Ah.
And then when I was 10, my parents moved to Santa Clara Valley because my grandfather had orchards down there.
Mm.
And I mean, not big orchards, but so they were investing in that area. So my father got involved in business, and various things happened. So
Near which municipality?
San Jose.
Yeah.
San Jose. Actually, it was Willow Glen, the area that my grandfather subdivided part of that when he was in I think it was the 20s,
Oh.
20s to 30s, yeah. His name was Christina, last name, Christina. It sounds like a girl's name, but it was his last name, and they were from...
Well, now you said that was his family name.
His family name, yeah.
Right.
So my mother was was Lorraine Christina. And so she lived until recently. I mean, she died a couple of years ago. She was 101.
Wow.
I know. My dad lived to 93. So
Good.
Long-lived people. Yeah. I'm hoping it passes on, but who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
sorry.
No, without a doubt, it will. It will.
It goes on and on. You know, our family history has been around the Bay Area for a long time. We have a lot of family in the area. I still do.
Ah, that's neat. That's neat. So,
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, I got to. Well, first of all, so I was living in San Francisco part time, and I was also going to. Do you know where Santa Clara University is? You know, it's
no.
in Santa Clara. Well, it's down near San Jose. It's a Jesuit university.
Oh.
And my parents, my father said, "You're going there. That's where you're going, or you're not going to, or I'm going to kick you out of the house." My father was kind of a rough guy, kind of a rough character, and kind of not old time, but he was very firm about what he wanted. So he said, "You go to Santa Clara and you graduate, because you'll be the first to graduate in our family, and then you can do what you want." So I was traveling all over the place. You know, I was really fortunate that my parents didn't keep a close eye on me, really. I kind of just did what I wanted. And being the only boy and the male in the family, you could do that stuff. So,
what year were you born?
44, 1944, yeah. So I'm going to be, in May, I'm going to be 78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, when I first met Suzuki, it was at the Osikoji on Bush, like a lot of other people did. You know, I went to one of the lectures or one of his talks, but I can't remember what night it was. I'm thinking Wednesday, but it might have been Thursday. But anyway.
No, not Thursday. No? Not Thursday, no.
Maybe it was
That's
Wednesday.
when he went to Los Altos.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I never saw him there.
Yeah, Wednesday sounds right.
Yeah, and so I went, and I didn't understand anything he said. So I always tell people, practically not a word. But he was very kind. That's what I remember. And I didn't, we were just goofy, kind of semi-hippies, because that was right before the hippie thing. So my hair was kind of scraggly, and he was just, really easy with us. One time I always tell people I dropped a half a hit of acid because I wanted to see what he was like, what he was really like, and he was just like he was before. It was kind of funny, actually.
Huh.
I didn't do a lot of drugs during that period. I did in the later 60s some, but not a lot. I never really liked I just liked the psychedelics, pretty much psilocybin and that stuff. And it was interesting, though, because I had a friend who you probably know of, if you haven't met him, Jumpo Dennis Kelly. He was.
Oh, well, sure. I've run into him a number of times.
Right. Yeah,
earlier in the 60s first. And,
right.
At Green Gulch. Anyway, right. I know who he is.
Yeah, and he died a couple of years ago. He passed away.
Wait a minute. Dennis?
You're thinking.
Oh, Dennis Kelly.
Yeah,
Dennis Kelly. I was thinking you
Wisconsin.
said Gimpo.
No, not Gimpo. I know Gimpo.
I thought you said Gimpo. Jumpo.
No, Jumpo. It's Jumpo.
Dennis Kelly died? Yeah, I knew Dennis Kelly, too. I knew Dennis Kelly better.
Yeah.
I know a lot about Dennis Kelly.
He was a real character, that guy.
Yeah.
When I knew him, he was a hippie, and he had long black hair, and I was one of his runners. Drugs.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine, John Marshall, he used to come and, because he was dealing mostly acid, from what I remember.
Who, Dennis
This is what
Kelly?
I remember. Yes.
Dennis Kelly was totally acid. He manufactured acid.
Yeah, and he got busted, see.
Oh, yeah, I know. He had his last meal before going to prison at Green's when I was the host.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
With that beautiful woman. Good Lord. And
Which one?
No, it was like his wife or something. Then, it was he'd been with her before. And he went to prison and organized a whole yoga thing there. And
he was really into yoga. Yeah, he's a very physical person. Very big kind of, I mean, he always intimidated me. I liked him, but he was pretty intense personality.
Yeah, I met him through Alan Marlowe.
Okay, see, I never knew Alan Marlowe. I knew his name, but I never knew him.
Well, he traveled to India with Alan Marlowe.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Dennis got around.
Yeah.
He died a couple of years ago in Appleton, Wisconsin, where he was born.
I didn't know that. I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
I never heard.
Yeah, yeah. I've been in contact with him for a while. Just I'd, email him, and we'd keep contact with each other. And yeah, I used to be one of his runners. What he would do is he would call my phone number, and then he'd give me a message and give me another phone number, and then I'd go to a payphone. In those days, they didn't trace anything. So I'd go into a payphone and I'd call somebody, I don't know who they were, and I'd give them this message, and that was what I did. And he'd give me $100. Well, $100 was like, Jesus, I mean, that was my triple my rent, I mean, he was very, $100 is like now it's like $1 million.
He was very generous. He gave his Zen Center thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's nice to know.
Yeah, he'd walk in and leave a bag of money.
Yeah.
In the office, and there'd be like $10,000.
All his drug money.
Yeah, sure.
I know. Yeah, I know.
And
that's interesting.
You know how I met him? Alan Marlowe. I was talking to Alan, and I said, God, Alan, I got to get all this copper plumbing pipe done. The building inspector, the plumbing inspector. He said, oh, I know just the person. And he sent Dennis over. And Dennis looked it over. Dennis was skilled. He looked it all over for me, measured it, went away, came back, bought all the copper pipe and tools, and then he said, I've got to go. My brother will come back and finish it, and he's better than me. And his brother came back the next day and did all the work. We never had to pay for anything.
Was that Patrick? No.
I don't remember his brother's name.
Well, see, Patrick was his brother. He died of AIDS. That's another interesting connection. Patrick was in San Francisco for years, and then he contracted AIDS and died of AIDS. I thought I didn't think Patrick was. He wasn't. I don't think a plumber. Maybe.
Oh, he was good. Listen.
Yeah.
He did professional work.
Issan really liked Dennis.
Oh,
he really liked.
I didn't know his son knew Dennis.
Oh yeah. He liked him a lot. In fact, Dennis came in. When he was up in Marin. I'm trying to think. Maybe that was before. That was later. When he was. I don't know. He was just visiting, and he came to Hartford Street, and I barely recognized him because he had, he shaved head, and he looked completely different.
Yeah, he was driving a BMW. He was wearing suits.
Yes, I don't remember. He was. Just,
he had a rack in the back of the BMW for suits and stuff, like there was over on one side.
He was such a character, that guy, and he was so. I mean, he gave a friend of mine was a musician. His name was John Marshall, and we were living together in the Upper Haight. This is early '70s, about, and Kelly came in. We used to call him Kelly, and he used to come and visit us, and he would say, "Oh, how are you doing, John, with your music?" And he'd say, "Oh, I'm doing okay. I need to go just get some. I need to make some tapes so I can bring them to L.A. and stuff." So he'd just give him a bunch of money, give him a couple $1,000s. He'd go get all your tapes done and get your. I mean, it was amazing the stuff he would do just for like, he'd stay for like an hour and then head off. So he was really.
After he was in prison, he went and studied with Edo Shimano.
Yes, I do know that. With Edo Shimano, yeah.
He and Dennis was so brilliant. I think he just Edo had stars in his eyes with Dennis. And
right. He would be a prize student.
Yeah, right. He was a prize. And Dennis got transmission. And the next thing I know, he's the Zen teacher. I mean, it happened like overnight.
That's what it seemed like. Yeah, I know. He was something else. I saw him in Marin, when he first came back here after, I can't remember, after he came from the East Coast, from Shimano's place. He came here in Marin. And he had a yoga studio. I don't know if you remember that. And the time frame, I've been trying to put it together in my head what the time frame was, but so I don't know how long he was with Shimano. But he came out here and he started this yoga studio, and that's when I connected again with him because I had friends who lived in Marin, and this woman I was friendly with, she used to go hang out with him and do asanas with him, and so it's all a small world, with this whole Zen, the yoga thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, So
indeed.
I saw him again. So I went up there to see him and talk to him and stuff, and it was great to see him. And he's so full of life, He was that way to the end. You know how he was. You see him did all these videos, and he was up near Portland someplace, but I can't remember what
Well, he went to the East Coast.
Yeah, but he had a place called Hollow Bones was the name of his organization.
Right.
Hollow Bones.
I get their emails still.
Do you?
But I don't read them, so I didn't know he died.
Yeah, well, that was just about 2 years ago.
He told me he had cancer.
Yeah, he did. He had different kinds of cancers, actually.
Yeah, he came out with that book that he didn't write. He just talked to this guy in Boulder, and the guy in Boulder, and I knew I used to know Ken Wilber, who lives in Boulder.
Oh yeah, and
same. So Dennis got tight with Ken Wilber and Genpo.
Right.
And
right.
The three of them. Genpo was selling Enlightenment for $55,000 for a weekend course, and Dennis, just like moved up to be a great Zen master overnight, and this book was saying, he did retreats at Tassajara, and various things, and it was just full of inaccuracies.
Full of BS.
Yeah, really. But I didn't.
Well, yeah, he never went. I don't think he ever went to Tassajara.
No, he did. In fact, I'm working on a book called Tassajara Stories, and he's in it. But look, his practice at Tassajara with Suzuki, it was all just padding his resume.
I guess so. Yeah.
And
but I always really loved Dennis.
Yeah, no, I like him.
It was like that. I just really thought he was just an interesting, crazy, wonderful, nutty character.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was also in a way, he was very slick and very sharp.
Oh, yes.
And he did have leadership qualities and guru qualities. And was very thoughtful.
I would never want him for my teacher.
No.
But he was a wonderful being. That's how I looked at him. He was just
on Cute.com, there's I have the parts from the book about Suzuki, and I critique them. I do not say they're not true. I just tell my memory.
I don't ever remember Dennis at Zen Center other than maybe visiting. I mean, maybe he was, but I wasn't there very much either, so I don't know.
No. He came to Tassajara as a guest of Alan Marlowe for like a week,
Okay.
And he worked. He was a great worker, and he was working up in front of the gate, and some poor penniless hippies came in, just wanted to get to the Narrows, and the gate person wouldn't let them because they couldn't pay. So Dennis paid for him and made the gatekeeper mad. And
that's funny.
The gatekeeper told her they had to go around.
I'm glad that you knew Dennis, though, because he was somebody to know. He was really a character. I mean, just as a human being, he was just really a lot of intensity, very intense. And the people that were his students or whatever you call them, boy, they really loved him, though, or they really followed him. Whether they went to hell in a handbag, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't know really I don't know that much about his group.
Yeah, I don't worry about things like that. I feel that Buddhism is passed on not just by great, pure, enlightened teachers, but by all of us. And
me too.
He did his part, and I don't really feel that critical of him.
Yeah.
He was, I feel sort of, I say, thank you, Dennis. Sorry, I didn't know you'd passed. Huh.
Yeah. I agree with you when you talked about the Dharma, about Buddhism. I feel the same way. It's just, and as I've gotten older, I feel even more that way. I just feel like you just take care of our lives and take care of each other around us, and that's it. That was Issan's thing, I mean, it's very simple, but it's just that's what compassion is, and it's not anything fancy or wearing all the robes and all that stuff. I never really got into. I mean, I did some of it, but it really wasn't the greatest thing for me.
I understand.
I just never could. I was never very good at it. I when I sewed my rakusu for Jukai, Blanche didn't like my work.
Oh.
And so in fact, I got thrown out of Zen Center. Like when I was younger.
Oh, tell me.
3 or 4 times.
Really?
Well, because I had a bad attitude. Well, they didn't say that, but what it was I didn't watch my speech. So I mean,
tell me what year? What year are you talking about?
Okay, well, this is after I originally met Suzuki years and years ago when I was a kid. I was like 17 or 18. At the old Sakoji. And then I saw him at a party across the street one time, and
What do you mean, a party across the street? From where?
Well, across from Sakoji, the old Sakoji, the old, I call it the Go Club now. The Go Club, it was the Go Club.
Well, no, it's a senior, it's a Japanese senior citizen home.
So anyway, I saw him. There was a party across the street with some people, and he was there because I remember this one guy in black robes, and they said, "Oh, that's the priest over across the street." I said, "I know. I met him one time across the street." So I went over. I said, "Hello." He said, "Hello," and that was about it. But I remember it, because there was no one else. No one else was in black robes there.
He usually wore brown robes.
And and he was little,
Yeah, very little.
Well, I remember black robes. I don't. Yeah.
I hear that sometimes. I guess he did. That's, and especially going to a party.
Yeah, it was just I don't even remember what it was. Everybody sat around and played folk music. I remember that part. We were all singing folk music, like early '60s. It must have been, or middle '60s, something like that. Before the hippie thing. Yeah.
Keep going.
So anyway, that's when I first met him, and then and then I went to Zen Center. I would go to Zen Center on occasion, fall through, very rarely, but I was usually a guest student when I went, and slept downstairs in the basement.
Oh, now you're talking about Page Street now.
Page Street. I'm sorry. Yeah, because I never really followed all the stuff till later. Issan filled me in on what happened because I didn't really know the whole history. I was doing, I was in relationships and I was traveling a lot, and I didn't really. I mean, I was sitting some, but not regularly at all. So, yeah, I was just going along, and then it wasn't until later that I put it all together, or Issan put it together for me. That was the best part of being with him, actually. Part of the best part, because he knew everybody, he'd been around forever, so everybody knew him, and everybody liked him, and generally, most everybody. And
everybody liked him. I wouldn't say generally. Yeah, nobody disliked Issan.
Not really, but he didn't like something. I mean,
no, but that's different.
There were a lot of times when he would, he would harass people for stuff, and he would do it in a certain way. It was very, very interesting.
I wouldn't say he didn't. There were people he didn't like. There was people he couldn't tolerate, or that.
Yes, that's better.
He was very fair to everyone.
Yes, he was. Yeah, that's why he was the director of the building forever, right? I remember that part.
Yeah, for a time. Definitely. Yeah. I used to stay with him when he was director, and I'd come in from Tassajara. I was director of Tassajara, and I'd come in at like 2 a.m. I'd just go to his room and open his closet and get out a sleeping bag and lie down on the floor. And then because he'd get me up for zazen, and
Right.
you know, he and I were roommates at Tassar, and he'd do the same thing as he did at Tassar. There'd be a little hot chocolate and a cookie there.
Yeah, he was a real sweetheart. I
Yeah.
would tell you. I loved him too. But it was funny because what I remember about him were all these little stories, that he told about Zen Center and about teachers and various people, and so that's how I pieced everything together. I didn't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't at Page Street, so.
Mm-hmm.
And the few times I went, I didn't like it, and then a few times I got thrown out.
Hey, go back to that. Tell me about
this
getting
is kinda
thrown
funny.
out.
This is early '80s, so it's not that long. Well, it's long ago, but not that long ago. And I was there for I'm trying to think, maybe a week or so, I guess, and maybe 2. I can't recall, but anyway, so I went, and I really, it was nice. I was glad I was there. I wanted to be there. For years and years, I wanted to actually sit every day in a structured environment and all that, So I was doing some cleaning. This wasn't after zazen in the morning. It was in the afternoon. They said, "Oh, we want you to. Can you?" Because they had a work crew or something like that. So we had to go and clean different places. I'm sure you know this because you know the building. I wasn't familiar with it, and I have to think about it, think where it was. There was a small kitchen that had a refrigerator in it, and it had food, like fruit. And do you remember where that was? It was like,
Well, there was room like that up on the second floor.
well, no, I thought this was on the first floor, not far from the kitchen. I might be wrong about that.
Oh, you're talking about the snack kitchen.
The snack kitchen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right, of course.
Okay. So I was in there. Somebody told me, I think it was Paul Haller, told me to go clean the kitchen. So I said, okay. So I go in there and I'm cleaning the kitchen. And Catherine Thanis and another student was there. And I didn't know Catherine then. I knew her much later. And so I'm cleaning, I'm cleaning around. And they were standing on one side of the room and talking. And I said, would you mind moving so I can clean behind you? And she gave me this glare, like, how dare you? And she moved to the other side. And then she said, in a passive-aggressive voice, which I got used to after a while because that seemed to be the way some people communicated. And so she said, thank you for your thorough practice, like that. And I said, fuck you. Well, that didn't go
Away.
well.
Oh, my God.
It just came out. That's just my impatience. It's one of the things this son liked about me because I was very impatient and just would say whatever was on my mind.
Oh, my gosh.
So she told somebody, and then I think Paul Haller, somebody came and said, you're going to have to leave now. You can't say that to anybody. It's not appropriate language, and you just need to leave right now. So you go down and get your stuff and get out of here. So I said, okay, I'm out. Bye.
I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that.
Wouldn't have done what? Throwing you
If
out?
I was director, I've had positions like that. No, but I was on the extreme permissive, tolerant end of
were you?
things. Oh yeah. Oh.
You were like his son.
Yeah.
Was on that end too.
Yeah, that's true. We'd cover for people.
Thank goodness for him. Yeah. He was so kind. He was great with me. I just so much admired him and loved him.
Yeah, but I would have gone and talked to you and said, hey, man, cool it. You can't go around saying fuck you to people here.
Right.
Jesus, right. People don't do that here.
Right. Well, I laugh about those stuff now, and that happened a couple of times. Other things where I said inappropriate things that just came out. So, anyway.
Well.
But I guess I got thrown out maybe. I got in a fight with not a physical fight, but a altercation with David Snyder.
Oh yeah, tell me.
Oh yeah, he was so. Oh, David, oh my goodness, because he was around I knew him at Hartford Street too. He'd come and he'd be Doshi part of the time, and when his son
I've never
gone
seen David having an altercation with anybody.
No,
but
really?
he's very He's sort of OCD.
Oh, yeah, I guess I don't
Oh,
know.
I loved it, man. He was a guest
Oh, you
student.
like David, huh? Oh, I didn't
Oh,
like David at all. I'm
oh.
afraid I had a hard time with him at Hartford Street. He was very freaked out by the gay thing, So he would come. No, he was just freaked out. I mean, he was afraid we were going to attack him or something. I don't know
What's
what he
he
was
doing
thinking.
going over there? He's working on
Yeah,
it.
he would.
He's working
Yeah,
on
he
it.
would be. Yeah, he would come in the morning early. No, he'd come in the afternoon, be the doshi in the afternoon.
Uh-huh.
And a couple of times, one time he came in. I'll never forget this one. And he came in and he sat down and he threw a Playboy magazine on the coffee table. And
Oh,
I said,
that is
"What's that?
so
Is that the
weird.
proof of your Is that the proof of your heterosexuality or
Wow.
something or what?" But
Wow.
he was a little nervous about coming there.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah,
You know what?
but not now. I'm sure that's all changed.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
he's in.
yeah.
Isn't he? Is he still with the Sagyana or all that stuff or Tibet stuff? I don't know what he is.
No, no. Well, I
No.
mean, he's involved with individuals and stuff. He was
Uh-huh.
head of Shambhala in Europe for a while. I
Yeah,
mean, he lives
yeah,
in
I knew that.
Cologne in Germany. When he came as a guest student,
Uh-huh.
I was work leader in '72, but I know he'd been there earlier, and because he has some stories about Suzuki and Trungpa
Uh-huh.
when Trungpa came there. But
Yeah.
so he was a guest student, and I was work leader, and I loved him. He was incredible. He was like I said, he was OCD. He was an organizing machine.
Huh.
I put him
Yeah.
on the closets, which would be all these cleaning closets with brooms and dustpans
Right.
and different things.
Right. Right.
He
Yeah.
he would organize them perfectly, get them perfectly clean, and then label everything. And I got him, and and the officers were saying, you're taking advantage of him. He should be concentrating on his practice. I said, what do you want him
Right.
just sweeping or something? That's ridiculous. This guy is unique. And he went down in we had this giant boiler in the boiler room down in the basement. That
Yeah, I remember that.
it could have blown up and blown the building up or something. It was big. It was big. It was like 10 feet wide and
Yeah.
12 feet deep and 8 feet high, and it had all sorts of
Yeah.
valves and things. He labeled every valve, figured it all out.
Oh,
And
well, that's
like
great.
everything in that room had these calligraphic labels because he'd been at Reed College. And
Yes, right, because that was his connection with Phil Whalen too.
yeah,
Because Phil went to Reed, and that was yeah. Because I remember they had a certain kind of relationship because of that, the Reed connection.
yeah. And then he did the
Phil,
biography of Issan and of Phil Whalen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you all clashed. That's
Oh yeah, well it was funny because I went with him a couple of times on trips, not trips, but on we would go to the post office. So he would drive to the post office, and that was when all the stuff was happening with Dick Baker, when things were kind of had fallen apart. And he didn't know what he was going to do. He wasn't sure what he was. He was very honest about he didn't know. That was the first time I really ever talked to him. So, I mean, I had a conversation, and he was saying he didn't know whether he could feel the trust with some of the other guys, like with Reb Anderson or with those other guys that he had with. I don't know, but I remember that conversation, though, very well.
mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a weird time to be at Zen Center that I went that guest time. And then
Yeah.
I was, it was kind of a because it was a lot of tension in the air.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for people. There was a lot of sadness. It was a sad
Yeah.
time.
I know.
Yeah,
People get attached, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
And I was
then they have idealistic ideas and they're myopic and they
Yeah.
don't pay attention.
right.
And it didn't, when all that happened, it didn't change anything in how I saw things, really. And Dick and
Right.
I just got closer because now
Really?
now
Yeah.
he was everybody was beating up on him, so I go
Everybody
talk
was,
to him.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
And he found out he had a friend.
Right. It's true because when he used to come, to Hartford Street when I was there, he would come and just hang out with his son. and he would just sort of show up. He'd call and he'd say, "I'm coming," and we didn't have cell phones, so it just he says, "I'm coming over." And we said, "Well, why don't you come for dinner?" And so we'd, have dinner together, and a group of us, other people there, and it was nice. It was very nice, actually. That was the only time I went. I was with him another time up at his ex-wife's place up at Virginia's house when she lived with Renee up in Marin.
Oh, yeah, Lucas Valley Road.
Right, and I went, wherever it was, I can't remember, but I took Issan up. I had a truck, and so I drove him up, and then I think Dick Raker picked up Phil Whalen, and then they went over there and Virginia was living with Renee.
Yeah.
All I remember is Renee. That's all I can remember her name. I didn't remember.
Renee de Tome.
Okay, good, thanks. So we had a very nice meal. It was really interesting, and that was that was the time. I'm mixing all stuff up now, David. I'm hoping it makes sense.
I don't care.
Okay, whatever. Right, good. You don't care. Good. So anyway, so that was. I didn't. So I never really. I was very opinionated about San Francisco Zen Center. I admit it now. I didn't like it at all. It felt cold to me, and I didn't like those little wire glasses all the men wore, and all the monks with their shaved heads and everything. I was a hippie, kind of a wild hippie, and I had long hair, like 6 into the 70s, so I always felt out of place, and when I'd go in there, and they'd always look at me kind of funny, and that's what I thought anyway, my paranoia. But I didn't do that much drugs. I mean, I didn't do marijuana. I would do psilocybin, but I never went to Zen Center stoned or on anything except that one time when I went to see Suzuki at the old Sokoji. That's the only time I ever remember doing any. Oh, one time when we all went to see the Karmapa. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember the Karmapa? That big thing?
The black hat ceremony.
Yeah, it was out of, the black hat ceremony. I dropped acid for that.
Far out. All right. There you go.
And I saw his son there, and I went up to him and said, "Remember me?" And he went, "Oh, yeah." He says, "Are you high?" I went, "Yes." So anyway, I remember that really well. And I remember every Buddhist around was there, I think, of every tradition of what I remember from so many different people. Yeah, that was an interesting thing it was out at the
Fort Mason.
Fort Mason, yeah.
I think it was in one of the really big warehouse type things in back.
Yeah, it was huge place.
Yeah. I forget what they were called, but I used to know the whole thing. I used to work at Maitre d' Greens, and I've had other involvement with Fort Mason. Yeah, I can't remember, but anyway, yeah. Hey.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, tell us how you met Issan when you first met him.
Oh, that was a long time ago when I first met him. That was when I was a baby. I was a kid. I probably was about 19, something like that, 18 or 19, and I went with my friend Nick Tritanic. And he was a friend of mine from, he was going to Menlo Atherton, which was, I had other friends that went there. So Menlo Atherton used to be kind of a prep school for rich kids that couldn't get into Stanford or other schools. So it prepared them to get in, and Nick was one of those people. His mother was a Star-Kissed tuna heiress, of all things. And he died, I'm afraid. He died. It's kind of weird. He died in a fishing trip. He got. It's kind of ironic that the Star-Kissed tuna guy would be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Anyway, I knew him, and so I went to his home in L.A. He invited me down there with a group of friends, a group of us from the area. And I can't remember how I met him, but he was the connection for me, for Issan. So he said, "I want to take you up to San Francisco. I want to show you these female impersonators. And I said, oh, I know what that is because my parents used to go to Finocchio's,
Huh.
North Beach. Well, yeah, because that wasn't that, it was kind of normal. I mean, relatively normal.
Yeah, Pinocchio's was
Yeah.
female impersonators for straight people.
Right, exactly. So my parents would take friends and family there when they,
Yeah.
So I knew something
was
about
Broadway.
it, but I didn't know.
It was on Broadway, right? Yeah.
Right, on Broadway, yeah. And so Nick took me up this one night, and we went up there to see him this one late afternoon. And I think I told you we got pulled over by the cops because he was speeding. We were running late, and he was the Northern California chairman of Alan Cranston's senatorial campaign. So he was older than I was. So he's probably in his, I don't know, early 20s maybe. And so that we had to get out of the car and put our hands on the thing. I'd never really had that experience before. I mean, I've been pulled over maybe once or twice, but this was really, it seemed like there was 5 cars and all these sirens and everything. And when they found out that he worked for the campaign, they let us go. It's the only reason they let us go. So then we drove in and we drove to the Tenderloin. And we went to Ann's, but I never could remember Ann's number, 3-something or something, the name of the club. And so we went there and we sat really close. He had us right up to the thing. And so that's when I met him. That's the first time I ever saw Issan. He was doing Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah. And I remember it really clearly. And he was beautiful. He was just so good. I mean, he was really, really good. And it was like you were sort of mesmerized by him. By his presence. That's another thing I remember. He was I couldn't believe it. I said, how could this be a man? I just couldn't get it in my head. And then after we went in the back, so Nick came in, we went in the back of the place to see him in the dressing room. And he was just so kind of messed up, actually. And he was dealing with his wig and stuff. And he used to use his real hair, most of the time. But that night he had a red wig on or something.
Yeah.
I remember a wig.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of speeding, He just like, who are you? And he talked really fast.
Yeah, he was shooting speed. He used to tell me about that period, when he was in the Tenderloin. He said that was the low point.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
He said they'd be pissing on the floor in the back and, taking it speed and heroin and just be totally fucked up. And, once he was like that and he was like just in the lowest place, and Mickey, his manager came up to him and said, hey, Issan, not Issan. Hey, Tommy.
Tommy D.
Tommy, yeah. Tommy D, the boy that looks like the girl next door.
Exactly.
And also, Tommy D, so beautiful you won't believe it. Those were his 2 monikers or whatever. So anyway, Mickey says, hey, Tommy, be on your best tonight. Your parents are in the audience. And he hadn't seen his parents in years, and his father was retired Navy, a very conservative family. And he does that and goes to the show. And then he went and sat down with his parents, and his mother said, this isn't a very nice place, Tommy.
He was very close to his mom. I remember that very well. Very close to her.
Yeah.
To talk about her. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I never met, well, she was dead, but I mean, I remember we used to do, you know all this stuff. I'm telling you stuff.
No, I don't. No, we know different. Don't assume I know anything in particular. Hey, and
you know the Sagaki ceremony, where you burn the stuff?
Oh, yeah, right.
Is that right? Yeah, right. Okay, we were doing that at Hartford Street one time, and he had all this stuff with his mother.
As long as you're going to say that, explain what it is.
Oh, well, how I look at it is feeding the hungry ghosts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what it is?
So what do you burn?
Well, you burn you burn objects that you had kept for the last year, and you put them in the fire and you let them go. Basically, it's a symbol of letting them go and not being attached to these things. And so he had some things of his mother's, and he had some letters, and he had this little statue of all things, the Virgin Mary, of Jesus' mother, you know.
Oh, yes, I know who the Virgin Mary is.
I'm sorry. I was Catholic, so I know all the Catholic stuff. And so he had this little statue of the Virgin Mary with her head kind of fallen off, a little wooden statue.
Ah.
And it was his mother's, and he was burning it.
Mm.
And he was crying the whole time. Not boo-hoo crying, but tears were coming out.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah, it was very sweet. Yeah, it was very sweet. Yeah, he had this side. He had these different sides to him because he could be really not tough, but very clear and very, demanding. He was very demanding with me. We had that kind of relate because I was sloppy. I was kind of a sloppy Zen student.
Mm.
So he was always straightening my back and telling me to stand up straight, and hold on to things properly, and I say yes, sir. And I was also older. I was not that young. I was in my 40s when I went there. So.
Yeah. Hey, I want to go back to the Tenderloin, and the reason is, you're the only person I have ever met who saw Tommy as a customer.
Really?
Well, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
You're the only person who I remember.
Right.
So,
well,
you
have to be kind of old to do this. You have to be around.
I knew his. I knew his.
It was a pretty sleazy spot.
Yeah.
It was a pretty sleazy. It smelled like piss.
That's what he told me. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Jesus Christ, that's awful. That's unforgivable.
Yeah, but he was wonderful. I don't know how to say it. I was frightened, actually. I was a young person, and I didn't know. I mean, I'd been around, sort of, but not really. I was just this middle-class kid, and I didn't know drag queens from Adam. I didn't know what this all was. And so we went, so we saw him at, like I said, we went to backstage after, and he said to me, this is what I think I told you. He said, "How you doing? Are you a sailor?" And I said, "No, I'm not a sailor." I remember that very well. It just struck me as a really strange
that's funny.
question.
He was in the Navy. He was in the Navy, and he got kicked out. But he got caught with another
with some
guy,
I'm sure.
being immoral. I think on a ship.
I'm sure. So when he said that, I went, "Oh, okay." And then he said, "I like you. Why don't you come back?" And I said, "Okay, we'll come back." Because he knew Nick. Nick used to slip him money, because I'm sure he slipped him money that night to see me. I'm positive.
Oh,
he did,
yeah.
That was what he.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what. Well, even when Tommy was in Alaska, he was turning tricks in Alaska.
They were
men.
You know what he told me they were doing in Alaska? That he'd be all dressed up, looking beautiful, and then he'd be coming on to some guy, and he'd play the guy until they got all his money, and then they'd kick him out of the bar.
Right.
He told me terrible things.
He was really the other thing he would do, he could drink really well compared to other people. I think it must have been. So he'd get a bottle and take guys to his room, get them drunk, and then roll them and then throw them out the window or whatever. He was really, really terrible. That stuff.
That's a good one. He told me he was 2 times. I swear he was saying in New York. I never associate him with New York, but I swear he said taken to a bridge by the East River Bridge or something, to be thrown off from having OD'd on heroin, and then he sort of came to right before they were getting ready to throw him off the bridge into the water.
That's really now you see I remember that now. He told me that.
Yeah,
I haven't remembered that in many years as you said it. Yeah, he said. Well, he used to say his line was, "Well, I've been in the gutter," and he says, "I mean, really in the gutter."
Yeah.
So he used to say, and people would all be shocked, because most of the Zen students around us they were all mostly middle class kids like me, or whoever. so the stuff he said was shocking to people.
Yeah.
Really, because he'd been so, and he also that's another reason we're connected to Richard Baker was that he always told me, he said, I love Baker Roshi very, very much, and he said, and I know he would be funny about it. I know he was a very, very, very bad man, but he saved my life. He says, so I will always be indebted to him, and I'll follow him anywhere and do anything he wants me to do. So that's what so that was his connection. So
Yeah.
I guess when he first started going wherever he went, whether Page Street or, because I don't remember that part. I never was there, so I would visit him occasionally. We go up on the roof and lay naked in the sun. That's what we do.
Well, now,
That's what I remember about Zen Center.
He came to Zen Center when Baker was in Japan. He didn't come to Zen Center because of Baker. He was at Zen Center when Baker came back from Japan and became abbot, and they just got to know each other naturally through him being a Zen student and and Baker being the abbot. And some people, when there was the split, stuck with Baker, and generally those who did were not. They didn't have wool pulled over their eyes. Is that what you say?
Right. They knew who he was.
Yeah.
They knew who he was.
I mean, Phil Whalen, Arnie Kotler, Issan, they were pretty clear-eyed people.
Right.
And when he first came, I remember when he first came, he was unintelligible.
Right.
I couldn't understand a thing he said. He was mumbling and everything. Right. And really, we thought this guy is totally burned out. And Bill Winter, who's was Tassara's free doctor for years until he moved to Guam and then to Hawaii with his wife. May he rest in peace. I love Bill. Bill said, and Bill was very hip to drugs. Bill was he was the president of the Monterey County Medical Association or whatever, was a highly regarded citizen, and he took acid and smoked grass, and Bill said that he thought people would be irreparably harmed from all this, especially speed. And everything. And he thought Isam was a total burnout and everything, but he said Isam changed his mind because he came back quite well and was very clear and had excellent behavior and was very steady and mature and was a good example. And he used to say to me, if you slow down, you'll get more done. He was really something, and he didn't have any relations. Contrary to public opinion, he did not try to seduce all the young boys.
No, I knew that.
Although he told me his first, he was running the Jamesburg house, and he.
Oh yes, I remember that too.
And he hadn't had any sex in years. And he said, and he was running the Jamesburg house, maybe there was somebody else living there or something. And he says he sees this beautiful blonde boy with a backpack walking up the road, and he figures he's going to Tassara. He needed a little help. So that was his first conquest in many years, and he said it was great.
I remember him at Jamestown too, because I went to Tassajara. I only went in the summer. I went one year. I had to go. He wanted me to go to Tassajara. There was at one point he says, "Time for you to go to Tassajara and to practice." This is fairly early on. I've been there about a year. We've been together about a year. So I want you to do that. So I went that summer, and I threw my back out in the middle of of the summer session, because we were just working, and I threw my back out, and I couldn't walk. So I came back and had to have my back taken care of, and so I never really went there very much. I remember going there years and years ago for something, but I can't remember what it was. Really a long time ago, like when it first started, I think, but I can't remember.
Well, we started in. Our opening ceremony was July 3rd, 1967, or July 4th. It could even be around there.
Yeah, that was the first practice period.
Yeah, July and August.
Okay. Yeah.
And after that, they were all in the fall and the spring.
Yeah, because I remember when I was there, I remember the old Zendo because it was all made out of stone. I remember that part.
Well, the front wall was stone, and the side wall to the office was stone, but the other two sides were wood.
Yeah. So, then let me think about the early days some more, if you have the time. Let's see. Well, I went a couple of times to see him, and then I also met this other guy whose name was through Nick Titanic. This other guy who was a drag person.
Who? Say it again.
Well, he was a drag performer, and Issan knew him. So I'm trying to remember his name now. Oh, Charles Pierce. Charles Pierce. And he did the same kind of stuff that Issan was doing, but later. But he for some reason he introduced me to Charles Pierce somewhere along the line, but I can't tell you exactly when. Whether it was at his club or Charles had a club too. And Charles was really a character too. He was insane. He was very big though. He was a big guy, so he he was just kind of crazy. But they all were. I mean, the drag queens around that time were just really, like I said, they kind of frightened me. I was sort of afraid of them. I didn't know what they were going to do. Like there was, I don't know. There was something about them that was confusing, and maybe it was just my male female, ideas about what's male, what's female.
Yeah.
And it's like transgender people. I've met some transgender people, and I'm just kind of, I'm not critical at all. I just look at them though. I think, they seem so, I don't know what they are. I'm still so binary in my head.
Yeah, me too. I know exactly how you feel. It's like, I mean, that's their choice. But I don't. That show, Transparent, I think was helpful.
Was it? I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was. And what pisses me is the main actor. I can't remember his name right now. He got canceled because it turned out he was coming on to people or something, or being pushy.
Something.
I'm really against that. I want to make a movie with all the great actors and comedians who've been disbarred for being, inappropriate and abusing their authority and stuff. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really against that.
It's really stupid. It's kind of silly, really. Yeah.
God. Just give him a slap on the hand and say, don't do that again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I saw Issan a couple of times that I can recall. But it was with the same guy, Nick.
Yeah.
Because I knew, Nick, and like I said, Nick invited me to his home down in L.A. and met his mother and all that. And so I remember him really well. He's the one that stands out as the connection with all that stuff. And he was fascinated by drag queens. He just thought they were the most interesting people. He saw it kind of like maybe a psychological study or something. But he was another interesting person that I met along the way. But I think Issan told us all the same stories, so we know a lot. But so he appeared there really frequently. I think he was in Anne's like every weekend or every maybe 3 or 4 days a week.
Now, that was like 65 or something, or
Yeah, a little earlier than that even. Maybe,
64. Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated from high school in '62, so I was I was underage. I don't know how I got in, but I got in.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
well,
in those days,
they were lax in their policing. I knew, I got to know the guys he worked with, some of them, because he went from all that heavy drug use and alcohol and dissolute life to being with like a psychedelic commune. In fact, the same guys, his manager, Mickey, and some of the other people around, they formed this commune in Haight. And
yeah,
so,
I was there. That's the place I was telling you about. It was called The Family.
oh yeah, he mentioned that.
Yeah, it was on the corner. It was on the corner of Haight and Cole.
Ah,
And Bruce Fortin lived there. Was one of the people there. That I remember him, and then I met him.
oh,
And also the Chittister boys were there. And they were little kids. James, and see, they were abused.
the who? The who?
James Chittister. Do you remember
No,
James?
no.
Issan's friend. No, you never met him.
Oh,
He
James.
was like
James. I just didn't know. Yeah, I
Crazy
knew him
James,
and his
Crazy
brother
Crazy
very
James,
well.
yeah.
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 I just didn't know
Well,
kids.
they were brought up. They were brought up there.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
so they were little. They were little kids, and so that part was. Issan used to say that was his. He felt really bad about that because those kids were abused, sexually abused, and
and they both died on the street.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't know the older brother, but I knew James because he came around a lot to Hartford Street.
My wife,
He would.
my first wife, we, after we broke up, I was with somebody else. And then at one point, she was sort of feeling her oats and enjoying different things. At one point, she got together with James, which was good for him, I think, to explore the other side. And, then people were very concerned because, James had been with a woman, I think. Another woman there, he was definitely bi, right?
Yeah, he'd been with other women. Yeah.
And he'd gotten mad and had assaulted her physically. So people were worried about Diane being with him and also being with a younger guy. And I said, hey, she's got her toy boy and she's enjoying it, and they're enjoying each other, and she'll take care of herself. And he didn't get mad and beat her up or anything. And that went on a while. And
So
he was at Tassajara.
Yeah,
he was at Tassajara.
I understood that. I didn't. Yeah, they really were very. They really allowed him. I think Issan used to tell me this. He used to say, at Zen Center, he could hide people. That's how he looked at it. So he said, like, Richard Baker would bring somebody in who was kind of had problems and stuff, and he'd just give them over to. He'd say, he'd give them to Issan, and Issan would take care of them. He'd make sure, and he was able to hide. Issan was able to hide people in Zen Center, and that was what was hard about being at Hartford Street because there's no place you can go, right? So James would act out a lot. I'm afraid he used to come and do crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, and it was James that gave Issan AIDS.
Oh, pretty much. That's what he thought. That's what he thought. Yeah.
That's what we all thought back then. I mean, I assumed it, and I think Issan thought it too. Because Issan had a weak spot for James. He couldn't resist him.
No, he couldn't. I know. Because James would come around quite often, and just hang out or be around. And he'd have a bad experience, with his drugs or whatever happened, and then he'd pass out. He just passed out, and so Issan would let him just lay on he had a little place, a little bed for him to sleep on. So he'd just pass out, and the next morning he'd wake up, and then he'd eat like a horse. James could eat a whole a whole thing of cereal, a whole box of cereal. I've seen him do it. But people were concerned about him. Some of the other people that lived in our building, some of the Zen students were, because he was pretty out there sometimes.
Yeah, he was a straight person.
Yeah, he was so, I don't know what, burned out, I guess, in some ways. Yeah. He asked me one time. I was sitting on the outside on the stoop at Hartford Street, just sitting there and waiting for somebody, and he came up to me and said, "How come you don't like me?" And I said, "James, I like you." He says, "Well, how come we don't fuck?" And I said, I said, "Well, I'm just not really into going to bed with everybody. I'm kind of." But I remember it very well. I'm just looking at me like, "What's wrong with you?"
I have this memory. He was kicked out of Tassajara for something. I don't remember what. And the person who was responsible for kicking him out felt like maybe he was responsible for James' demise and death, and that he wished he'd been more tolerant and forgiving at the time. Something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think. James had so. James was living out at the beach. He was living in like a hovel at the beach. When he was coming to visit us at Hartford Street,
Mm-hmm.
when he come, and he was on SSI, and one of the guys in our building, Michael Merrill, was one of the students. He was his representative payee. He was James's. So James didn't have any money. He'd go through his money pretty quick, and then he couldn't get money, and then he'd get pissed about it. So he tried to break in and all kinds of stuff. It was very interesting being around him. One time everybody was out of the house except me. I was staying in, and it was when the hospice was just getting started, and we only had one person there, and that person went out with everybody else for some reason, and I was alone. And James showed up, and he had a barracuda in barracudas. They're these big long fish. They're big long, like a yard long, and skinny, kind of weird looking things.
Yeah.
And he brought this, and he said, "I want to cook this barracuda." I said, "James, we don't have a pan. You need to cut that up, and barracuda's not good eating, you know." And so he decided that he would use every pan in the house and put them next to each other on the stove, each pan, and fill them with oil. And he didn't cut it or anything, and it started to get crazier. Well, of course not. No, of course you can't. And I'm going, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die here."
Oh, no, you can't do that. Oh, God.
I better be. What am I going to do? So I said, "James, you can't." So he started splashing oil all over. We had these big cans of oil, and the oil was going over everything on the floor, and he slipped and fell in the oil, and it was just some crazy scene. So I said, "I think I'm just going to leave now." So I just left. I went outside. It was at night. It was very irresponsible.
Oh, my God. How irresponsible of you. You left the building with just James in it. You're lucky it didn't burn to the ground.
I know. It was true. Burned down. And when everybody came back, James had passed out in the kitchen. I came back, and they said, "What happened?" And I explained to them what I said. I escaped. I'm afraid I just completely. I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. I didn't know how to control him. I didn't know what to say to him. And he was. So that was the scene. So it took us like a week to get rid of the grease on the floor. You could have slipped around, slipping, sliding on the floor. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have this image of James passed out in a puddle of oil.
Yep. He is just something else. He was a great teacher, I guess. Right?
There was.
Yeah, I didn't know his brother. Yeah.
Now, there was a picture when his brother died on the street. There was a picture in the Chronicle of his brother dead on the sidewalk.
Yes, Issan had that picture. It was on his wall. I remember that picture very well, yeah. It was on the wall, in his wall,
Yeah.
in his bedroom. But see, I never met I never met the kids
Yeah.
when they were little. I might have, but I didn't. They were little, at the family. Um, but I visited the family a couple of times because I had a couple of friends that lived there. So, and that's where Issan was. That's when he was still pretty crazy there. I remember him being pretty crazy. But he was just, but it wasn't as bad as it was when he was in the Tenderloin.
No, because he was just an acid head, and
yeah, and he was
into
and
that.
he was older than the rest of us. That's another thing. He was like must have been 10 years older than I was, I think. Yeah, but I didn't know Mickey. I don't remember him. I only remember Mickey from later, when we went to visit him in Sonoma. This is all this time thing. I never knew Mickey.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to drive Issan to Sonoma to visit.
Me too.
And that's when I first met them.
He was just like his manager.
Yeah.
Mickey. He was a nice guy. Yeah. And we also saw somebody, I don't know if you remember, there was a Zen guy. He was a gay guy. He was living in Sonoma. We stayed with him. His name was Tundra Wind, was his Buddhist name. And remember him, that name? Yeah. He was
yes.
I think in some Korean tradition, if I remember right. Yeah. Very quiet fellow.
Yeah.
Very quiet. Low.
Yes.
Yeah. And we stayed with him. We stayed with him there. That's how we stayed. We stayed over at his place. I don't know what ever happened to him. I mean, he used to come and talk at Hartford Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but I remember Tundra Wind. I don't know what happened to him. I can't remember now where he came from. Oh, that's Jim Wilson. Oh, Jim Wilson.
Uh-huh.
Here, I just find this on Cute.com. Also having been known as Tundra Wind.
Oh, okay. I didn't know his other name. Uh-huh. Okay, well,
not sure about now. He's written poetry with the name. Google it. Anyway, he runs Many Rivers Books and Tea. I know him very well.
Yeah, is he still around then, huh?
Many Rivers Books and Tea in Sebastopol. He's a very nice fellow.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Well, I don't know. I haven't lived there in a long time.
Yes, he was.
And he was into Gurdjieffian stuff.
Yes.
He and another guy ran Many Rivers Books and Tea, a wonderful bookstore there in Sebastopol, and I lived in Sebastopol, and I have sometimes sent them money from here, and so...
Well, that's interesting. Well, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, at least once from here, and had them give somebody a book, because I wanted to say hello to them that way.
That's interesting. Yeah, I have his name down too because I remember that name, Tundra Wind, and one of the things that was, I'm jumping around again as usual. We're jumping all over, but at Harvard Street, when Issan was there, a lot of the teachers came through. The Tibetan teachers, and it was great from that point of view. I mean, we had Ram Dass showed up. Not that I was a great fan of Ram Dass's, but it was wonderful. He showed up, and he. All these people came, and like 100 people in the place. You could barely move. And everybody paid money to see him, and helped us to support the place. Because we never had enough money, how that goes. And so, but we got original money we got to do repairs and stuff came from Vanya Palmer's. Vanya. For Hartford Street, for all the work we needed to do.
For what?
The building. Vanya Palmer's gave us $10,000.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, he's done a lot for a lot of people.
He has. That's a lot for that time. And then Jim Hormel, who was Hormel Meat People, he also gave us $10,000. We had Issan and I went to a meeting with him, and he was very generous also.
Did you get any little wieners or a hot dog or anything from?
No. He took, you know what he did? Do you remember the famous restaurant? It was called Stars downtown. It was off of
Uh-huh.
Van Ness. Okay, we went there. He took us there. He took his son and I, and he had this a friend with him. He liked Asian boys, so he had this Asian boy with him. I hate to say just Asian, but I couldn't remember who they were because he changed them. So, anyway, so he's with the four of us are having dinner, and this is something another one of those things I'll never forget. We're going through the wine list. You know, his son's looking, and we're all looking at the wine list, and, and this is something that his son said. So Jim Hartmel said, "Well, this is really the very best quality, whatever it was, this Chardonnay or this Cabernet Sauvignon." And his son said, "The best will do." It hit me so hard, I started laughing. I almost started crying when he said that. And Jim looked at him like, it just was the funniest thing I've ever heard. He did a lot of those things. He would do those lines that would just kind of cut through things. But it wasn't this big Zen thing. It just was this really unusual take on things. He was very interesting that way to me.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm jumping around, but
Yeah.
but I
Oh,
remember that very well. How he made that comment, and what we, when we're having this fancy meal, and people were also upset that Issan drank, but he only drank one night a week.
that's right. That's
That was
right.
Friday night. Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
it. He'd have his Tanqueray martini, a big hunk of martini, And he got me to drinking with him a little bit, but I didn't have as much because I was really affected. I could drink wine, but I couldn't drink straight gin.
Well, what I remember about alcohol is that Tommy would be, and I'm earlier, not earlier than Hartford Street days. Tommy
Yeah.
would be, you know, would drink, and he would get amorous.
Oh, really?
And
Huh.
he would
Yeah, that's interesting.
know who, it'd be a group of guys. I can remember being in an apartment near Zen Center, and it was like Saturday's the day at Zen Center, Saturday night, and
Right.
and I think we were all going to go to Hamburger Mary's, and
Yeah.
which was I loved Hamburger Mary's.
Oh, me too. That was just great.
It was
Yeah.
so great, and it was so great. Its mix of straight and gay and different
It was
races.
everything. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was everything.
I would pick up friends who arrived in San Francisco and take them there first,
Yeah.
like from
Yeah.
the airport, because San
Right.
Francisco had this reputation. But there's a lot of bars and stuff that I wouldn't be welcome in. Like I didn't go into the Stud.
Oh, the Stud. Yeah.
Although there were some places more heavy than the Stud, but Hamburger
The Stud
Mary's
was just a hit. The Stud was really a hippie place. As time went on,
Oh.
and it was a gay hippie place. It was really fun to dance. I used to go there all the time.
Maybe I'm
It was
thinking
fun.
about their earlier days or something.
Maybe another one. Yeah, there was another one that was like a leather. What do you call it?
That's what
Like
I'm
leather
thinking
bars.
of. I'm thinking of a
Yeah, no,
leather
the
thing.
Stud. The Stud had the stupid name, the Stud, but it was anything but that. It was all these
Oh, maybe I'm
gay,
getting it confused with that. I was
long-haired
thinking
boys,
of
a lot
a
of
leather
long-haired
bar.
Yeah.
But
Oh, well, that was the Toolbox. The Toolbox was that was called. I never went there, but I knew about it. The Toolbox. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about. That was intimidating.
my cousin arrived in San Francisco with his boyfriend, and Phil was, a prominent orthopedic surgeon from Rochester, and but he was openly gay, and so I picked them up at the airport and took them to Hamburger Mary's, and they loved it. And Phil said,
Yeah.
"Okay, David, so we're going to go our separate ways now because where we're going to go, you don't want to go now." But anyway, so I've been with Issan where he was drinking, and then he would really change, and he would get amorous, and he would know
Mm-hmm.
immediately who among the males in the group were susceptible to his advances.
Right.
I have seen that, you know,
Yes,
and
me too. I've
they're
seen
going,
that
"Oh,
too. Yeah.
Tommy," you know,
Oh,
and I
Tommy.
go, "Wow, that's so proud." And I've seen him do it in my apartment, you know,
Yes.
and actually take a guy into the bathroom.
Oh gosh,
And I
that
was
sounds
there
like
with
him.
Arnie Kotler, and
Oh yeah.
Arnie was just, oh God, I thought he was going to die. He was just speechless. And this was after after we'd come home and we'd all had a bunch to drink and everything.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but, so Isan had this history. He still could get wild. Dell, Dell Carlson.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
Dell
yeah. I
would
know
tell
all about.
me horrific stories about him and Isan going out later on
Right.
from Hartford Street on the night Isan drank and, getting kicked out of clubs because
Yes.
Isan's climbing on the stage trying to attack the
Yes.
performer.
He couldn't
Incidentally,
help it.
I have very close friends here that were very close with Dell, and we
Uh
spread
huh.
Dell's ashes here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Because I know he went to Florida. He ended up going to Florida.
yeah,
He
yeah,
got pissed at Zen Center. I know that. He told me
yeah. He
uh,
was, he was.
for whatever reason. I don't know. Because he went in every summer for years, right?
Oh, at
I was there
Tassajara,
in the summer.
he was at
Yeah, Sahara.
Tassajara
Yeah,
every summer forever,
forever.
and
Yeah,
he and
yeah.
I would always start off with a tea in the abbot's garden, and that was like a little ritual.
Right.
And yeah, I don't remember what he was cranky. I don't remember what
Yeah, he was a little
his thing
cranky, but
about Zen Center was.
he was a very creative man. Again, did all the beautiful drawings.
Oh yeah, I've got his art on Cuke.com.
Yeah,
Quite a bit of it.
yeah,
And
it's so nice. Yeah, there were a lot of creative folks there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I stayed in touch with him when he was in Florida.
I was no longer. Yeah, after I left Hartford Street, I was really tired actually. After his son died, it was a long, hard. There was a lot going on at that point, and Dick Baker was trying to. He finished up his son's Dharma transmission stuff in Santa Fe, and then he came back, and then his son came back to Hartford Street, and then for some reason, Richard didn't want to he didn't want to finish up Steve Allen's Dharma transmission. So I don't know why that was, but he said, I never could get all the politics. I call it politics because I don't know what was going on.
Right,
So
right.
he said he wanted Issan to do the Dharma transmission with Steve. Well, I don't think Issan could have done that, or might not from a big formal thing. He didn't have the energy, and I don't even know if he would have to, because he was talking to Richard Baker. Or Issan was talking to him all the time. He talked to him almost every day because he was concerned about what was going on, with HIV and with AIDS and all that, and we were trying to, we wanted to do something in the community. We both did. That was one thing we had in common, very common.
Yeah, Dick was so upset when his son got HIV positive.
Yeah, that was a really hard time.
He was sort of mad at him about it too.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I saw them a couple of times in really funny, great situations. One time, Richard was visiting, and they would go into his son's room, and I heard them laughing and playing music and stuff. And one time, I went by the room, and the door was open, and they were dancing, and Richard was leading. It was another very sweet thing. You wouldn't see that. I went, oh my, this is something. This is amazing. I don't think I'd ever see this anyplace else.
Yeah.
And I used to go dancing with Issan at the Stud. We'd go dancing together. That's another thing that I wouldn't have been able to do with, I don't think, any other Zen person. Zen teacher I knew. He wasn't exactly a teacher for me in a formal sense, but he was a wonderful example, and
he was your Zen friend.
He was, yeah, exactly. He was my Zen friend.
Yeah,
he was a
mine
good
too.
friend.
Mine too.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he was so much. I mean, he was so funny when when he was in a certain mood, he could just be so funny. And he always crack a joke right before. I was his. What do you call that thing? I'm losing all my Zen phrases and things. The person who holds the incense behind the doshi. What's that person called?
The Jisha.
Anyway, the Jisha. Yeah. So I was always his Jisha, and so I'd pat him on the back right when he'd go down into the Zendo. I used to always pat him on the back, and he'd say, "Ready to go to church?" He'd always say these really crazy, funny things, and it always cracked me up just as we're going into this. He'd just do that kind of stuff a lot. He would say things, and you just go. He was very, very clever, in the way he spoke and the things he said.
Yeah,
he made a great impression on me overall. The time I spent with him, and I, so, and then I kind of, after he died, I decided to move on because I didn't really feel connected there anymore, and it got kind of because of the politics. I call it that. Maybe it's just I love really thinking about that time. It was a wonderful time for me. Not that I live in the past, but those are for me. It was a formative time. And for most of us, I was fortunate to live in San Francisco. I was fortunate to meet the people I met, and Issan was one of my many.
Yeah, and
wonderful people that I was close to. So
yeah,
that was great. And I love the fact that I could, like I was saying when I saw him and Richard Baker dancing together, Issan and I were able to dance together. Well, that's not something I would have ever imagined when I was a teenager, that I would someday end up dancing with this Zen guy. It's like it was just so beyond my imagination. So
I never danced with Issan.
Well, that's okay. If there's anything you want to know more or anything at some point by email, I'll be glad to send you stuff if there's anything you're interested in. I know you're interested in his at the time of.
I'm interested in everything.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Well, no, I am.
Because your archives are really, I mean, I've not been able to really get. I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And I read your book, and I've obviously looked through your website, which is so thorough and interesting.
Yeah.
I was surprised that you had that picture of Issan and I looking at your postcard. That was great.
Rob Lee took the picture. He sent it to me. I've got stuff from Rob Lee there. And he's reading the postcard I sent him from Japan and laughing. Right. And it said something like, it said something like, "Hi, Issan. I'm here in Japan having a wonderful time," and and then I listened. I don't know, just went on a little bit about how great it was and how great life is. You, however, have AIDS, and went on about that somewhere. And I don't know. I wish I had a copy of it I could see. It was just something I wrote on.
I don't know. I would imagine that. I don't know. Steve Allen kept a lot of that stuff. He kept. I think he probably had more than anyone because he was doing the more personal stuff. You know what I mean? Like he handled Issan's bank account and that kind of stuff, and some of his correspondence. So he may have it. I don't know. I think he's still in Crestone. He has a.
Oh yes, he is. He's got a monastery there, a big beautiful place. In the flat. Oh, I've visited him there a few times with Angelique.
With Angelique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's like Southwest architecture. The red clay and
I've seen pictures of it. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's been going decades. He's
I guess so now. It's been a long while.
And just right uphill is Richard Baker. They had a split at some point.
I know.
That's normal. That's normal. That happens.
Yeah. yeah.
It's
And
traditional.
right. And Richard, well, Richard's getting, he's not young anymore. He's like in his 80s now. Isn't he? He's amazing, that man, that he's still functioning so well. I think I'm glad he found a nice lady to help him and take care of him. His
Oh
princess.
no, they're divorced.
They're divorced. They're not together anymore.
No, no.
Oh, I thought they were. Oh.
Yeah, they got
I met
divorced
her.
like last year. They were together a long time.
Yeah, they were. I met her on the street in San Francisco. He was getting her an engagement ring downtown, and I ran right into them physically. Ran right.
Huh.
And he introduced. It was very interesting because I didn't even know he was getting married again, and he just introduced me, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm going to get married, and I'm getting my future wife, a ring." It was near the old Shreves, and he was going up to this, I guess, some diamond dealer that he dealt with before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this was the last time I saw him, so that's been a while ago.
Oh yeah, that'd be 20,
Oh, yeah.
20 years ago, or more,
Yeah,
22
like
years ago, or I'm not sure exactly when. Yeah.
Before I say goodbye, I wanted to ask you one question. Are you functioning as a priest now?
No.
No, you're not. Okay.
No.
I was wondering if you're.
I mean, being a priest in the Soto Zen tradition is that we're in. It's not like the Tibetans or the Theravadins. Japanese would ask me if because I was involved with the temple and stuff. They'd
Right.
ask me about that, and I'd say in Japanese, I'm a paper a paper priest. And
Yes.
they know what that means because they have a thing called paper driver, paper doraibu. That's a paper driver because just about everybody there gets a driver's license, and there's all these driving schools, and you drive, but then they don't drive, right? They've got driver's
So it's
licenses.
like, well, there's so many priests there, I guess, that they just pass it down to. They're still passing it down family to family. That's what I remember.
Well, yeah,
The
mainly
temples would be passed down.
They got a lot of empty temples, man.
Oh, they do.
Oh yeah, I could probably. I'm a little old to get a temple now, but
Right.
you can get a temple. You know what I could get, and what Mike Jambold, may he rest in peace.
That was a surprise to me.
Yeah, of course. We had.
Because I live with Mike.
We spent time with him in '88 there in Kyoto.
Mm-hmm.
He would caretake. He was caretaking a temple in Shikoku. It was just him. He was just sitting zazen and taking care of the temple, and there's a lot of empty temples, and but then he got involved with this Rinzai temple in Kyoto, where the guy really took care of him. A German guy was abbot there, and yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised that because I didn't think of him as being. He's younger than me, so I didn't think of him as being that old. But he's not that much younger. I guess.
He got
I was sort of surprised
some sort of flu or something.
I heard it was pneumonia.
Yeah, pneumonia. And actually, I remember he'd seen Paul Rosen. He would just come back from America, and Paul Rosenblum had offered to pay his way to go to a hospital. So it was something where people were concerned here. He went back there, and the German fellow whose temple he was staying in went to do, he had weekly responsibilities elsewhere. And also he'd go to Sogenji and do sesshin and stuff. So he went away, and then he came back, and not Issan, pardon me. Michael, what did we call him? Michael, Everybody
I'm
called
trying
him
to
by
remember
his Zen name.
Yeah, his Buddha. I can't remember right now.
I can't remember. Oh,
Mike,
because that's what
I
we
just
called
remember
him.
Mike.
God, Michael.
Oh,
All right.
yeah,
He was dead, and yeah, it was a
yeah.
shock because it was just not expected.
Right, right.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was,
yeah. Well, okay.
well, thank you very much for calling me. I appreciate the down memory lane,
Yeah.
the trip down memory lane.
Well, hey, you've got a good
It's very
memory.
interesting.
Why don't
I
you
do. I
why
do
don't
pretty
you
good.
write? Don't what you know? If you send me a bunch of little things, I'll collect them. But why don't you collect them and write something longer? I'll put it on Cuke.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, Cuke.com. You know, it's just a compulsive thing I do, but
Yeah.
it's
It's great that you're doing it. It's a real gift, I think. Seriously.
well, well,
It's really an archive. It's a great archive.
yeah, it's a big archive, and one thing I like is it's showing a lot of the history that wouldn't normally be recorded.
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. The stuff that's kind of because it was always. You're right. Exactly. I know.
You like Suzuki Roshi only wanted when things were very fragile back in the Sokoji days. So he didn't want anybody
Right.
with any experience in Japan or anything to say anything discouraging. But
Right.
times have changed now, and he didn't want
Right.
anything said about him. He didn't want
Right.
his history or anything to
Right.
or him to be a subject. He thought that would be
Right.
the death of his teaching.
Right.
But after a while, we'd grown up. We didn't need to be protected and sheltered like that.
There's so many people now. There's so many places all over the country, all over the world. I mean, it's a different. There's so many Zen centers. You don't know. I can't keep track of them.
No.
All the different groups and everything, and a lot of them from Suzuki
Yeah.
and Richard too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The number of sitting groups, small, medium size, and that out of Suzuki's lineage are vast. But there's
They
also
really are. Yeah.
friendly ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
There, it's a very vast network. Yeah. And hey, yeah. And I'm glad, and I'm very glad you got hold of me.
Yes.
And I'm glad you responded.
Yes, it's great. I'm just thankful we had a chance to actually speak to one another.
Yeah.
That's a value to me, because you have so many. You know the Zen side of it much better than I do. At the city center and at over the years and at Tassajara.
Well,
I don't really have that. I was not involved at that point. I was too. I was doing my own thing, as we used to say.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're doing fine.
I'm doing okay. I'm thankful that I'm alive and relatively healthy.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
I'm glad you are too.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And may we continue to be happy, healthy, and free from harm, and awaken, and
Right. Exactly.
all that.
Yes. Yeah, you too. Say hello to your wife. I think I've met her, but I don't remember when exactly, but I'm sure I have in the...
Katrinka?
Yeah,
Well,
maybe not.
she started off at what is it? What was the bar by City Lights? Vesuvius?
Oh, Vesuvius, yeah.
Yeah, and she worked in some of the places there in North Beach.
Uh-huh.
And I was just telling her that Tommy was he was doorman for Carol Dota for a while. I mean, he worked there.
I didn't know he did that. That's funny.
Oh yeah, and Lenny Bruce was his roommate.
Oh, that's even funny. That's great. He really got around.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce turned him on to heroin.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That one I didn't hear. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we were lucky to have him as long as we did.
Yeah,
For
it's
the
a
way he
shame he
lived.
died, but
Yeah,
but
died pretty young.
c'est la vie.
50,
Yeah.
56. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay, well, nice talking with you. I appreciate it very much.
yeah,
I
it's been
enjoyed
great.
it. And I'll hopefully we can keep in contact.
Yeah, well, just
We'll see
shoot me an
what's
email.
up. Sure.
Yeah. Take care.
Okay. Bye. You too.
Bye-bye. Well, thanks a lot, Daishin David Sunseri. That was most interesting and illuminating. Well, this has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogget Bandita, Fila Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.